Coming up, former Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Ross Swimmer, shares with us his history-making tenure that brought a renewed constitution to our nation.
Having the Constitution tells people on the outside that we're really legitimate and that we're an organization they have to deal with.
And
the rodeo has taught me some of the greatest lessons in the world, and it's brought the greatest people in my life, and it's something I'll always be grateful for.
meet six-time National Finals Rodeo qualifier Coleman Proctor as he lassos his way through life with his eyes on a team roping world title. Plus, hear from Cherokee Nation citizens about what it means to be Cherokee. We explore the traditions that have shaped us, misconceptions of who we are, and look to the future and what it may hold for the next 7 generations.
Being Cherokee is not about yourself, but about serving the people. It's a term we often call gadugi, which means we serve the greater good rather than the self.
The Cherokees.
A thriving American Indian tribe.
Our history.
Our culture.
Our people.
Our future.
The principles of a historic nation.
Sewn into the fabric of a modern world.
Hundreds of thousands strong.
Learning. Growing.
Succeeding.
And steadfast.
In the past, we have persevered through struggle.
But the future is ours to write.
Osiyo.
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 These are the voices of the Cherokee people.
Osiyo, welcome to the Cherokee Nation. I'm Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. For generations, others have told the Cherokee story. But now, through this groundbreaking series, we're taking ownership of our own story and telling it as authentically and beautifully as possible. I hope you enjoy these profiles of Cherokee people, language, history, and culture. Wado.
Osiyo, it's how we say hello in Cherokee. I'm your host, Jennifer Lauren, at the Will Rogers Birthplace Ranch near Oologah, Oklahoma, a home originally belonging to Will Rogers' father, noted Cherokee politician Clem Rogers. Clem was an important figure in Cherokee Nation politics leading up to Oklahoma statehood.
I think we can safely say that through most United States history, there is always an attempt to get rid of Indian people and Indian sovereignty.
Learn more about the effects Oklahoma statehood had on the Cherokee Nation later in our Cherokee Almanac. But first, from John Ross to Lewis Downing to Wilma Mankiller, the history of the Cherokee Nation is filled with strong leaders who devoted their lives to serving the Cherokee people. One such leader is Principal Chief Ross Swimmer, who oversaw the reconstitution of our tribe in the 1970s. Under Chief Swimmer's guiding eye, our tribe was set on a path that we continue to forge to this day.
What I feel about what we were able to accomplish in somewhat limited time, 10 years, we just kind of started the wheels in motion. When we sort of set the stage for it with the Constitution, that has allowed the tribe to grow. My name is Ross Swimmer, formerly Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, 1975 to 1985. I'm originally from Oklahoma City. After I graduated high school, went to the University of Oklahoma and decided to go for law. And that actually led me to the Cherokee Nation. I was appointed as general counsel by Keeler for the Cherokee Nation and continued in that job until 1975. After 1887, the government stopped making treaties with us, or any tribe. Keeler's appointment lasted until 1970, and that's when the first election since statehood was held, was in 1971. It was a new day within the Cherokee Nation. Keeler had said he will run as the first chief to be elected after statehood, and he was elected overwhelmingly. I'd been the second chief to be elected. Keeler was very instrumental in that. He was convinced that the tribe needed someone with my background, experience, law, and what have you, and he thought that given the cast of candidates, I'd be the best one to do that, so I did. And I was not a politician. I had no no real background in that, but I'd never run for anything myself. And for at least a period of time, I was the sole control for the Cherokee Nation. The principal chief was the only authority for the tribe, as we didn't have a constitution or constitutional government. That was why part of my platform was to run to bring a constitution forward. After I was elected, I sat down with some attorneys and some tribal members and some of the tribal employees, and we put together kind of a committee, and I presented a draft of a constitution. My idea was you would have a tribal council that would act in essence as a board of directors that would oversee government operations and be the check on the chief. You would have a court, the Supreme Court, that would hear the differences and make a decision. Then with those things in place, you'd have a deputy chief, so you'd have a line of succession. Because if anything had happened to Keeler, the Bureau of Indian Affairs would have taken over the tribe. So you have the chief, the deputy, a line of succession, tribal council, and a court. And those are the basic instruments of the Constitution. I took the Constitution up and presented it to the secretary and explained what we were doing, and he took his pen and signed off on it and said, that's fine. That was the turning point. That's when we could have sovereignty again. That's when we could start acting as a sovereign tribe. Having the Constitution tells people on the outside that we're really legitimate and that we're an organization they have to deal with. I ran the second time, and then we had a lot of trouble in the third election. My deputy chief, Perry Wheeler, had decided to run against me, and I wasn't even sure I was going to run. I had just had a bout of cancer then, and the politics were pretty brutal. I had asked for Wilma Mankiller to run with me as a deputy chief, and it was surprised, really, because I got a lot of pushback on a woman being in a political office for an Indian tribe, and I had never given it any thought. Wilma had done a good job for several years working in the community, so I did ask her to run. She agreed, and we got elected. And I then got a call in 1985, and the Secretary of Interior, Don Hodel, said, what I really need is an Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs, and I want you to come to Washington to do that. Still had 2 years left on my term, and I wasn't sure that Wilma would assume that particular position as principal chief if I left. The ultimate decision was that I would take the job, and from that point on, I think Wilma did a great job during her tenure of moving us forward. So my feeling was, my 10 years was, we got it started. That was my contribution, and it has grown, and the current administration is doing some fantastic things. I like what I see today as far as how we've grown. The Cherokee Nation's in pretty good shape today, so I'm excited that I got to be part of the start of it.
A lot of Cherokees rodeo, but 6-time NFR qualifier Coleman Proctor has his eyes on the top prize. Coleman is a skilled team roper, and we caught up with him on his way to another shot at the National Finals Rodeo world title.
Rodeoing has brought me so many friends and contacts and people down the road that it's going to serve a bigger purpose in my life than just competing at it and being known as a guy that went to the national finals or that headed good steers. Rodeoing's taught me some of the greatest lessons in the world, and it's brought the greatest people in my life, and it's something I'll always be grateful for. I'm Coleman Proctor, 6-time NFR team roping header. Today, you're on the beautiful Diamond Bar Ranch here in Pryor, Oklahoma. I got married the love of my life here in 2016. We've been together since 2008. Had our first little girl in 2017. That's Stella. She is very much my girl. Like, she is daddy's girl all the way. We had our second little girl in 2019, Cambry Kate, and she's a fire pistol. She loves everything horses. She loves running barrels. She loves doing everything her mom does. She's very much her mom's daughter. So we're just us four, and I don't know, we have a good time. We're, sure enough, I would call us a ranching family. It gets wild out there, but it's a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Yeah, so the Diamond Bar here, it's been since 1894, and a lot of its history comes from, it started with Steph's great-great-grandfather, Elmer Hatton, and he actually started this ranch off of his Indian allotment land. So 10 acres at a time, he put it together, and then we had the opportunity to build into it. So I grew up in Miami, Oklahoma. My dad and my mom both roped and rodeoed, and so we grew up in a little rodeoing family. I mean, growing up, I tried all the sports, and I just wasn't very good at most of them. But I honestly just didn't have a passion for anything else other than roping. And I was blessed with two parents that really 100% behind me. Anything we ever needed, they supported my dreams. You know, I came home in the afternoon from school. I'd rope the dummy all afternoon, and at night, my mom would have to call me in at night to go to bed. I'd be up roping the dummy, and I knew from a little kid that I wanted to be a professional team roper. I knew I wanted to make the national finals. Team roping might be considered the most frustrating sport in all of rodeo. So it's a sport where I rope the head of the steer and I turn him off, and then my partner will come in and he ropes the back feet of the steer. So the header is generally the more sophisticated of the two partners. Honestly, he's the one that they would call the quarterback, and the heeler is kind of like the wide receiver. He gets a lot of glory for catching the touchdown pass, but the quarterback can do so much to set him up for it. It's like any team sport. Anything you achieve as a team is so much greater than you can do as an individual. And it is exactly right when it comes to team rope. And it's so much chemistry, timing, trust in somebody else.
Tonight we're at the Rodeo of the Ozarks in Springdale, Arkansas. Kind of a special rodeo for me. It's one I've been to since I was a little kid. You know, it's only an hour from the house, so it's kind of a pseudo hometowner. I get to bring my rowdy kids with me, and they get to cheer me on from the front row, so it's a lot of fun. It's really special, and it's always fun to win in front of your hometown type crowds.
This is a legendary man in the sport of Cherokee, Coleman Proctor. Nicely done, man. Coleman Proctor. Great job, cowboy.
Now we got us an all-night drive to the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. On to the next one.
A dear friend of mine, Justin Turner, started hauling me around when I was 14. Then I was heeling for Justin, and it was the first time that you actually see, like, you have a goal, you work towards it, and you can accomplish it. And the first year that I bought my permit, we won our circuit, which there's 12 circuit systems in the PRCA. So that's the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. And, in this part of the world, we have many different associations you can go to. But the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, that is the top echelon. And the next year we competed at the Dodge National Finals because we won the circuit. The first rodeo I ever entered on a professional level, we won first and won a buckle. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, I started heading in 2007. I wanted to rope with my best friend, Jake Long. We grew up together. There's videos of us roping when we were 3 and 4 years old. In 2010, we won the Georgia Strait Open. That was probably the biggest life-changing moment we've had. We win $80,000. We win a truck, a trailer. Steph and I were talking about a life together, and we wanted to start building this place we're on now. I asked her right then, I said, do you want a ring or do you want a barn? And she said she wanted a barn. That's when I knew she was the one. 2012, I was frustrated, hadn't made the finals, just didn't really know where I was in life. I kind of went and sought the help of the greatest header that's ever lived, Speed Williams, and had the opportunity to actually heel for him. And that changed my life, and it changed a lot of things in my personal life, and just kind of how I attacked every day, and got a little more goal-driven and saw that results happen from the work that's put in every day. It taught me that if you're wanting to be successful, you don't skip days in the practice pen. You're out there every day. And then I went back to heading, and then that's when we started having success. 2014, I broke through, had the opportunity to rope with Jake Long again, and we made a lifelong dream come true and made the national finals together. Top 15 in the PRCA at the end of the season, get to go to the national finals. We call it the Super Bowl of our sport. It was just an amazing year. It was just all but a world title, which is what we're all going for. And then 2021, I made it again back to Vegas, kind of kind of validated my stature again that, hey, I'm still good enough to make it. Because you get to that point, I'm 36 and I'm thinking, oh man, I don't know if maybe I'm a little bit past my prime. And last year really validated that I'm still right in the middle of it. So it let me come home and set some different goals. And I know now, I want a rodeo till I'm 40. And then my girls will be old enough to be doing fun stuff, and I'm gonna want to be home. So now it's like, hey, here's the home stretch. This is the fourth quarter. What do we really want out of it? And I'm gonna pursue it for the next 4 or 5 years, just really trying to win a gold buckle and be known as the best team roper for that year. I'm really gonna lay all my eggs into that basket.
On November 16, 1907, many people celebrated as Oklahoma joined the United States of America. However, it was a much different story for the tribal nations of Indian Territory. In this Cherokee Almanac, we examine Oklahoma's path to statehood and its complicated and even devastating effects on the Cherokee Nation. In the 1890s, following the Oklahoma Land Run, thousands of non-Indian settlers began moving into Indian Territory and the bordering unassigned lands that formed Oklahoma Territory. The United States government began to push for Oklahoma statehood and the incorporation of Indian Territory, and therefore the Cherokee Nation, into this new state.
The Cherokee Nation was divided on the statehood issue. Some people welcomed statehood, but the majority of the Cherokee people saw it as the demise of the Cherokee Nation, and that their lives would never be the same. And indeed, this was the case in many instances.
Despite protest from several tribal nations, including the Cherokees, U.S. Congress passed the Curtis Act of 1898, asserting their authority over the nations of Indian Territory.
I think we can safely say that through most United States history, there is always an attempt to get rid of Indian people and Indian sovereignty. And so really by the 1890s, we're full on defending constantly against pressures to move towards statehood. And there are constantly bills moving through Congress that essentially push to that end.
In the looming inevitability of statehood, leaders from Indian Territory searched for a way to retain their sovereignty.
There's a push for Indian Territory to become its own separate state. And in the convention, they stated that it would be named Sequoia. So they actually set out the counties. Everything was set up under this constitutional convention as to what the state would be like.
Unfortunately, the U.S. government disregarded this proposal entirely.
There was a push to join the territories for politics, for the political ramifications within the larger United States. And had they split Oklahoma Territory and Indian Territory into two separate states, it would have brought in two new states with the same governing party. And President Roosevelt was never going to let that happen. There was never any real serious consideration of bringing two states into the mix. It was going to be one or none.
Oklahoma Statehood Day was set for November 16, 1907. Celebrations were planned among the U.S. settlers in Oklahoma Territory, but it was a very different story in Indian Territory.
My dad said, when I was 6 years old, he said, I barely remember it, but I do remember. We were at the Capitol building. He said no one was talking, no one was saying anything. And a wagon had come on to the square, pulled by a couple of horses. White men jumped out and began unloading books. And he said, and my mother pointed to the back of the Capitol building. And there was another wagon back there that apparently had come up at the same time almost. And there were Cherokee men there, and they were loading stuff into the wagons. People began to walk away, and he said, I remember hearing women weeping very softly, men walking away with their heads down. He said, in years after, I asked my mom what that was. What was that that we were at? She said, that was Statehood Day, 12 noon, when Oklahoma became a state. And the men in front were unloading American law books and taking them in. And the men at the back of the courthouse were loading up the Cherokee law books, taking them out of the Capitol building. We had just lost our country again. And the people you saw had come to witness the taking of that once again. After statehood, we had no control, we had no say-so over things. But we did have say-so over our own homes and our own communities. And that lasted for a long time. That's the society I come from. That's the culture, that's the community I come from. Vibrant, working communities where we all helped each other, where we all depended upon each other for everything. We controlled that. We controlled our culture there, and that's all we had left.
To this day, the Cherokee Nation continues to struggle with the ramifications of Oklahoma statehood, but the strength of our cultural identity has persisted, and today we stand strong as a sovereign nation.
Osiyo sanas. Osiyo gasila. Gado hadane. Juni yawi dega deshwa. Gada usta jayawi. Ahni awi. Sanas hadla inedo. Dini la wigi adanela iniya. Ni ani hawi. Ni anigi lohi. Ini tenoga. Hawa juwa duhi. Dilga dulodi.
In a time when identity issues are often complex and confusing, true Cherokee identity is alive and thriving. But many misconceptions still exist. In this story, we hear firsthand from some of our citizens, and we hope you walk away with a deeper understanding and respect for our nation.
Being Cherokee is not about yourself, but about serving the people. It's a term we often call gadugi, which means we serve the greater good rather than the self. And so everything we do as a nation, everything the businesses does as well, serves the greater good of benefiting the nation as a whole. I am Kimberly Teehee, Cherokee Nation's delegate to Congress. Being Cherokee to me is really, it's not what I am, it's who I am. You know, I'm blessed to have been raised in a Cherokee family filled with Cherokee traditions, knowing who I am as a Wolf Clan member, knowing that my genealogy, my ancestors were strong people. It's embedded in me, you know, to do good. That's why I became a public servant, because, you know, to me, being Cherokee is not about yourself, but about serving the people and about something bigger than yourself.
I was talking to a woman the other day. I was in an interview with her, and I told her that I was really a traditional Cherokee. And she says, "Really, what's that mean?" And I said, "Well, I've never identified myself as anything else. You know, the first language I heard as a child was Cherokee." I'm Danny McCarter. I'm a Cherokee National Treasure for the blowguns and darts. If you're ever around Cherokees and they're sitting there talking Cherokee, they're always laughing. That's why I love the Cherokee language. I associate it with good people and good times. I'd say the Cherokees in general are a happy people.
Osiyo Nukadai Davidon, Jalagijin Death Clause, Dagilo Staneho. My name is Sarah Holcomb, and I work at Cherokee Immersion Schools. As Cherokee people, we still have a lot of our traditions. There are still families who are raising their children to be traditional, who are trying to teach them the language. But there are still a lot of misconceptions to Native American people that can be harmful to them. When you watch on TV or something about, you know, a Western, it's like they're killing all the Indians, and it's like, oh, they get rid of them all. I think a lot of Native Americans are romanticized, or even like their stories are romanticized. I mean, people thinking like you can do some type of like put your ear to the road and know people are, you know, if someone's coming or something. It's more like, I guess they think we're some type of magical beings. I just want to be perceived as a human, not a thing. I've never been crazy about the idea of people using Native Americans as mascots. Mascots dehumanize Indigenous people. I do not think that Native mascots accurately show who we are. It's about respect. Just listen to the people that it belongs to, and take that in consideration, really. I don't appreciate someone who don't understand where we came from and our traditions to try to tell stories about us. And if you have questions, just come to those people.
I think back at the fact that we're a matrilineal society. We come from strong women. I often get told I'm a bossy person, and I'm a strong woman. I know that. I know that because my mother raised me to be that. My grandmother raised me to be that. And my mentor, Wilma Mankiller, raised me to be that as well, as she mentored me through my path toward a professional career, but always with an eye toward the communities. That's Gadugi. That's community. That trickles its way into how we interface with our community, how we protect our community, how we protect our language. We have the chief of the Cherokee Nation who has made preserving and protecting the Cherokee language a priority, so that we have a facility now called the Durbin Feeling Language Center, where all of our language programs can interplay, where our teachers can go, where our translators can go to continue that work. We have a pretty massive health complex right here in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and I think that is something that gets right back to the heart of who we are as a people and community, which is, protecting the health and well-being of our citizens. We have Morgan Rodman, who's from Locust Grove, Oklahoma, who is currently the executive director of the White House Domestic Policy Council. And then we have, Brad Carson, who is the first Native American to be the president of the University of Tulsa, who's also a former member of Congress. So we have Cherokees who are doing great things in this country. We have the Cherokee medicine keepers, who are typically our first language speakers, who keep the culture and tradition and know the connection that we feel toward the land and natural resources and the elements. We also have national treasures at Cherokee Nation who are known to have significantly contributed to the arts and to the culture as well.
I feel like we've made a lot of progress. Cherokee Nation is the largest tribe in the United States. Cherokees have always been able to move forward.
I am Cherokee first and foremost. I've lived like that my whole life.
At the end of the day, we always come back to who we are as a community, which is preserving and protecting our community and looking after ourselves, Gadugi. And so instilling that through all these different layers, I think the future is bright. And I can't wait to see what all these investments and opportunity means ultimately for the nation and the next generation.
We hope you enjoyed our show. And remember, you can always watch entire episodes and share your favorite stories online at Osiyo.tv. There is no Cherokee word for goodbye because we know we'll see you again. We say, Dodadago Ha'i. Wado.